Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Evan Grove Charter School Board meeting for November 16th. We do have a quorum and we are going to call the meeting to order. We are going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, it's over here.
I'm sorry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And if everyone would state the mission statement.
To inspire passion for lifelong learning, one student at a time.
And we'll go ahead with the roll call.
Dwayne Zegler.
Here.
Stacy Barnum.
Here.
Michelle McCray.
Here.
Daisy Akintoy.
Here.
Brian Ladman.
Here.
Colleen Preston.
Here.
And Against.
Absent. All right. I hope everyone got a chance to review the board working session minutes from Tuesday, October 19th. I do need a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion, Michelle McCray.
Do I have a second?
I'll second Stacy Barno.
Any questions or comments that we should know about? Nope.
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. And again, for the board minutes for the same evening, October 19th.
I'll motion.
Thank you. A second.
I'll motion, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Student enrollment.
So student enrollment for the end of October, period October 31st. We were at 1,904 students. We had 11 student withdrawals during the month of October and 2 new student enrollments. And then I continued to include the application submission information up to that point, where we were at a total of 727 applications for the 21-22 school year, and still had a waiting list across almost all of the grade levels, totaling 294 students.
Great. Thank you. All right. Student representative report. How are you?
Good, how are you?
We're great to see you.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Lily Cruiser. I'm the student council, high school student council president. Here's my report for November student activity. So to start off, student council is doing a baking contest. They're going to be hosting it Thursday at 6 p.m. It's open to whoever wants to come eat. We're doing it around the fall play so that can promote participation in both the baking contest and the fall play. We're also going to do a dedicated day for December, which is, I guess it's a movement that is raising awareness for the ending of trafficking and human labor. Next is NHS and TRIM. NHS is rolling out their peer tutoring program this week. Tutors will be primarily NHS members, but they open it up to other high school students. Students who request tutoring will be paired with a tutor. So you can choose what subjects or classes you want to tutor for, and then those students who are looking for help also choose what classes they're looking for help in. They'll be selling concessions at the fall play, which is Thursday and Friday at 7 p.m. and Saturday at 2 p.m. And TRIM held their first coffee house. Unfortunately, it was rained out, but they did get everything in order to be able to do it in the collaboratory. Next is academic competition. They held their last match here in the collaboratory. The varsity team won, and the scrimmages that were originally planned for the season are now replaced with actual matches because they found a way to organize the teams that were going to be missing a game into just one larger 4-person or 14 game. Next is Leo Club. They're doing a canned food drive with a reward holiday party for the winning class. And so far they have over 200 cans collected throughout all the high school grades. Pretty sure the seniors are winning pretty heavily right now. Next is DECA. They're attending their first competition, their first real competition, which is districts. I believe it's in Hershey this year. So they're getting excited for that. That's December 7th. Next, we have athletics. Fall sports seasons have officially ended. Soccer is holding a game to benefit the Bridge versus Avon Grove tonight at 7 p.m. At Avon Grove Stadium. Volleyball and soccer placed 4th in their league. And cross country, both varsity teams were 3rd in their league. Co-ed cheer tryouts are going on, and boys basketball for the winter has finished. So they have their team together and they're practicing. And then for the fall awards for the MIL first team, which is this team they put together of really talented players and players that they think deserve that acknowledgement. Brayden Monteleone, Brendan Stocker for soccer, Gia Hall for volleyball, Sophia Stevenson for volleyball, and honorable mentions, Cameron Anzalone for volleyball and Noah Kibler for soccer. And that is all I have. If anyone has any questions. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
And I hope they win tonight. Everyone go check out the soccer game. All right, moving right along. Brian, any public comment?
It would just be the people tonight, yeah.
Okay. President's report. I have nothing new to report at this time. We're moving forward. DG Finance.
Under the consent agenda, please.
Thank you. Facilities planning.
All right, thanks. So the minutes went out just to cover a couple of things. There was a safety drill or 2 safety drills that went on and they reportedly went well. The heating is in great shape for both buildings and dare I say, we're almost ready for snow. Hopefully that doesn't happen, likely will. Continuing to move forward with the module replacement planning as well as the early learning center parking lot project. And then another big thing on the hit list is State Road is up, campus is up for its 3-year asbestos inspection.
Thank you very much. Human Resources, Stacy?
Yes, so the Human Resource Committee had met. We continue to have ongoing discussions with the Quest, which is a group of teachers and staff, along with the HR committee. The HR committee does have a vaccination policy that's being presented to the board that was shared with all board members regarding its policy 305 COVID-19 vaccination policy. It falls under the emergency provision that board policies may be adopted or amended at a meeting and not require the 30-day review period in an emergency. An emergency is defined for the purposes of any situation or set of circumstances which the board has reason to believe will close the school, jeopardize the safety or welfare of students or employees, or will result in the charter school's noncompliance with state or federal laws. Tasha Bowers is our team member from the administration. Tasha, can you share the information regarding the policy and if the board members who've reviewed, if you have any further questions?
Tasha, can you just clarify this is for employees and not students?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, put a mandate out to those employers with 100+ employees. And it's an emergency temporary standard. So it's, right now it's considered temporary with the understanding that it could be permanent. So with the vaccination policy, we had 2 options. So we can as an employer mandate vaccinations of all employees. Or the other option would be to make it optional with a tested requirement weekly for unvaccinated staff. AGCS has 87% of staff that are fully vaccinated, and we have proof of such. 13% is unvaccinated. So we went with the latter option, making vaccination an option with requiring weekly testing of unvaccinated staff. Okay, so the policy is all inclusive. So there are 2 specific dates. There's December 5th, in which we would have to have an approved policy that meets some other components, such as offering paid time off up to 4 hours for those employees that wish to get vaccinated. That does not include booster. It's to get vaccinated, either Janssen, Pfizer, or Moderna, okay? It also requires methods of which we collect from vaccinated employees. So like a card or an attestation form or what have you. Also, it's a requirement of face coverings for those employees that are not vaccinated. And it also takes it a step further where they have to remain with a face covering except for eating, drinking, or if you're in the office with a closed door. Okay. There's also, like I said, the testing requirement. The testing requirement requires unvaccinated staff to show proof of a testing result every 7 days. And our policy is specific to, you have to either get tested from a pharmacist or a healthcare physician. We will not accept self-administered test results. So it's very, very detailed, very inclusive, 7 pages. The policy has been shared with Colleen, Preston, and Stacy prior to sharing it with the labor attorney, Randy Shower. Randy Shower made changes which have been updated and then shared with the board on Friday. I did receive some feedback from Brian, thank you, which I responded and updated where necessary. So at this point, unless you have any questions, I would ask for approval. Now, let me just add this, I'm sorry. Right now, there is appeal out in the courts. If this mandate is blocked, then at a future board meeting, I would ask to rescind this policy. Additionally, it is temporary. So this is supposed to expire on May 5th, 2022. If it is permanent, then obviously I'm not going to ask to withdraw the policy. But if it remains temporary, then I will then meet with you again regarding the removal of the policy. Does that make sense?
The only thing I would like to add is that Holly would be involved in the testing here at school. They know that.
Yeah, so Holly would be in the testing while she's here. However, if this was to continue to be permanent, she's not here in the summer. So there's a portion of the policy, the testing is the responsibility and cost on the burden of the unvaccinated employee.
Okay.
So while the nurse is here, great, but if the nurse is not here, then they have to find testing.
Now, you say Nurse Holly.
Or Nurse Sam, either one.
Great, thank you. Both sites are carried.
I usually go to her name first because she's in charge of COVID stuff. So yeah,
Right, thank
but both nurses. Yep.
Just a question regarding January 4th with the federal date sliding. Is there any plan to move that or are we keeping January 4th? I think it's now January 18th from the federal mandate.
Oh, so it's changed since then. So yes, as it changes,
I mean, I don't think it much matters, but I don't know if it, I don't think it much matters, but I could be entirely wrong.
right. So, I mean, we're set up to start testing. So if that's something where we want to stick with the January 4th, that would be based on what you guys, if you guys approve. But we're already set up. We have a tracking mechanism already in place that Nurse Holly helped me implement. So.
Okay, is there any legal issues with keeping the January 4th date as it's written now?
No, there are some other schools, specifically charter schools, that have already implemented a policy. So no, just ahead of the game.
Nothing wrong with it.
Any further questions? So, Tasha is looking for approval of the policy 05 COVID vaccination policy, the final. Do I have a motion to approve?
Brian Ladman, I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Brian. Do I have a second?
PG Akintori, I'll second.
Thank you, Deji. Any other comment or question?
I think just to reiterate to the public and who are watching, as Kristen Bishop said, that this applies to employees and it's not to students. I think that's very important to make sure it's very clear in the community.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Thank you, Tasha. All right. Anything else, Stacey?
No.
All right. Strategic planning, me. We had our first meeting of all the volunteers of staff and parents. Brian led the meeting and it was very well received. It was basically an overview and an introduction of everyone. So there was nothing of substance at this point. So hopefully next month, we'll start moving forward with calendars and some updated information. So that's where we're at with that. So moving along, head of school, data presentation.
Okay. So I have Kim Trumwell here tonight. You want to come up so the mic can pick you up? And Kim is going to go over some of our data points, not just PSSA. Obviously, there's a gap of 2 years of missing data. And so we're not looking back to compare data. We're really looking at a starting point, a new starting point, along with some benchmarking and plans that we have going forward. So I'm going to let Kim lead the charge. Go ahead, Kim.
Okay, so usually I talk about PSSAs and Keystone scores and trends over time. Like Kristen said, with learning being very different last year, and the number of students who we had test was very different. So the last time we did test, we had about a total of 30 students that had opted out of the assessment. And last year we had over 200 students that opted out of the assessment. So it's really difficult to make those comparisons from last year's data to previous years. And the state also recommended not making any of those trend analyses. So I will only be going over last year's data, and then more importantly, what our current benchmark data is, and then what we're doing about that. So this just gives you kind of a breakdown of how many students we had test in each of this grade levels, and then the number of students that did not test. So like I said, 30 students the last time we tested didn't test, and now at each grade level, at least around 30 students didn't test. So we're looking at 65 to 80% of students that tested in a given grade level. So it's definitely not exactly where we would be able to compare for previous years. So this was our current overall data from last year for PSSAs for 3rd through 8th. So the dark blue bars are our ELA scores. The yellow bars are our math scores, and then the light blue is science. We only test science in 4th and 8th, so that's why you only see those bars for those particular grade levels. But you can see that our reading ELA is higher than math, which has typically been actually our trend, and then our science typically is higher than both reading and math as well. For Keystone Exam, so we obviously didn't test in the 1920 school year. And then when we returned, we actually did test biology in the fall of 2020, because at that point, the state had not told us that those kids, if they had passed the course, would be exempt from taking the Keystone. So we had gone ahead with plans for remediation in the fall and tested them. And so at that point, we had about 65% of students that had passed the biology Keystone from the 1920 school year. And then last spring, we had all 3 testing subjects. So algebra was about right under 50%, biology 51%, and literature 75.5%. For students that did not pass, we are retesting in December because most of them, it is a graduation requirement to either pass or composite score or a different pathway.
Other data that we had to share that we've done in previous years is our advanced placement assessment data. You can look at 2021 scores. And then as well, 2020 scores. We didn't share this last year because we didn't do a data presentation, but that 2020 information would have been students who took the AP exam at the end of the 1920 school year and took that remotely at home in June at the end of that school year. And then this past school year, the 2021 data would have been for last school year with students, the majority of them not necessarily attending school in a normal fashion. They were going in hybrid learning every other day. So even to compare this 5-year school summary averaging, whether it's total AP students, because some students opted not to enroll in advanced placement courses simply because the format was going to be different or forego that. Can you actually go back one more? Sorry. or the number of exams is somewhat hard to compare. But you can see one number that we do look at is the total percentage of students who took the exams who were scoring three or more. 3 is typically the score that you need in order to try to obtain college credit with most higher ed institutions. So we were sitting at last year with 70% of students who were enrolled in taking one of the AP exams scoring 3 or better, which was up from the 2020 school year in that alternative format. But also in the last 2 school years, having more students taking AP exams than the previous 3 years prior to COVID. So what we are working on in the high school is increasing the accessibility of our AP classes to students, increasing the number of students enrolling in those classes, as well as ones who will elect to enroll and take the exam at the same time. And then if you go to the next slide, you can kind of see that just side by side in graphical form of percent of students who were scoring 3 or above. That's it. Oh, and then I did include for the board, if you wanted to go back through to see the scoring distribution across AP exam areas. So you can see how we did in particular areas of study. And then this was also shared with our advanced placement teachers, and we go through instructional resource reports of, why did our students in the United States history class, score lower than their historical average? What areas did they struggle in? And we try to attribute it back to whether it was a content related issue, whether it was a pacing related issue, whether it was a delivery of instruction and kids not being in school every day last year. Those are all conversations that we have.
Okay, so benchmark data, which is what we're utilizing a lot to make our decisions. So just to kind of an overview, we typically assess students 3 times a year. This year we did our fall in October. We'll assess again in January, and then at the end of the year in May. And how we give assessments in both reading and math, and we use multiple data points to make decisions. So we use our benchmark assessments, which is the Acadian system, and that's for math and reading. And then we also give a diagnostic assessment, Exact Path, which is an online adaptive assessment. We utilize all of that data and place our students into a tier. So our tiers, typically in a perfect world, you would have 80% of students at tier 1, which means that the traditional classroom setting is appropriate. Tier 2 should be at about 15%, where you need to provide a little bit extra support for students. And then tier 3 would be about 5%, where you're adding all of that additional support to meet grade level expectations. So this is just an example of how we put the kids into tiers. So we typically will use 3 data points for each grade level. And based on the percentile of how the student performed in each of those measures, they get a number of points associated to that. So the less points, the less support that the student needs. So for this example, we use oral reading fluency, a maze, which is a comprehension measure, and then Exact Path, which is the online adaptive. They'll get points for 0 to 25th percentile, 26th to 49th, and 50th to 99th. And then that breaks them up into tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 based on the number of points that each student had for those assessments. So based on that, we have decided, really, we've done this before, but really hyper focusing on this year to set goals at each divisional level. Which is more of the administration team looking at the grade level goals. The classroom teachers created their grade level goals based on their fall scores. And then classroom goals, having the teachers really dig into their specific classes, look at where students are, and making plans to make movement within their kids. So currently for fall in our K-3 division, so you'll see that tiers typically will happen in a triangle format. So in reading, we currently stand at about 52% of our students being tier 1, 20% being at tier 2, and 27 at tier 3. And then in math, 52 at tier 1, 27 tier 2, and 21 at tier 3. So based on that, we have, we looked at where we fell last spring after that year of online and remote teaching and learning. So the end of last year in reading, tier 1 in that division was about 44%. And then testing them now in October, that division's at 52%. So we have seen some gains just with a little bit of time in school this year.
And this is the earliest we've started interventions.
Yes, we started interventions week 2 this year. We utilized all of the data that we had at the end of last year. And with the additional interventionists that we have, we were able to start all students that needed that tier 3 support week 2 of school, which is the earliest that we've done.
Thank you, Esther's money.
Yeah. And then in math, at the end of last year, we were at 48%, and now we're at about 52%. So we are making small gains in just a very short amount of time. So with that, our goals for the year is for the spring, we are really looking for reading to be at 60% for tier 1 and 15% for tier 3, less than 15 at tier 3. And math, we're looking at a 70-10. So we have a lot of things in place, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, but we have a lot of things in place to try to hopefully get to those points. But we can make adjustments in the winter based on how our students are performing at that point. So the 4 to 6 division for reading, tier 1 is about 65%, with tier 2 being about 18, and then 17% for tier 3. And then math is about 42% tier 1, 27 tier 2, and 31 tier 3. So there is a bigger divide between the reading and math at this level, where the math is becoming more complex. And with gaps in learning for the past year and a half, that's about to happen. So again, looking at last spring compared to our fall now. So for reading, we were at 64% in the end of the year, 65 at the beginning. So it's pretty much saying about the same of where we were. And then in math, we were at 50 at the end of the year, at 42 now. So it took a little dip, but we have, again, have things in place to hopefully address those deficits. And our goals for this division, we're looking at 80% for reading by the end of the year, and we're looking at 65% for tier 1 for math. And then our middle school division, we're currently at about 68% at tier 1, 18% at tier 2, and then about 14% at tier 3 for reading. And then math, 43, 28, and 29. Again, there's a bigger discrepancy between the reading and math at this level as well. We didn't tier students at the end of last year for 7th and 8th grade because a lot of their measures are different, and trying to do them online was a little bit more difficult to do. So we're just starting fresh with our fall data. So our tier 1 is obviously right under 69%, and our tier 1 is 43. So we're looking at an 80% tier 1 for reading and 60% for math. So based on that and our goals, these are some of the things that we have put in place. So for ELA, we created the ELA frameworks in K-8 during last school year. So this is the first year of implementation. So all of the teachers in K-8, ELA teachers in K-8 are following the frameworks, which are based on our standards. And I've been doing check-ins with them throughout the year, and we'll be continuing to do so to make sure that all of our content is aligning to standards and our deficit areas. In grades 3 through 6, we're utilizing a class-wide intervention because of the needs are so significant. We decided to go with a class-wide approach to try to reach more students than potentially just a small group full-out intervention. So we're utilizing PALS, which is peer-assisted learning strategies for reading, that's focusing in on their fluency and comprehension. And then grades K to 2, we're really targeting those foundational skills. So they have allotted times in their schedules to be focusing on all of those foundation skills. For math, we created frameworks for K to 8 during the 1920 school year. So last year was the first year of implementation, but with last year being a little wonky, this is the full year of them being in person and utilizing that. We have created common assessments based on standards in these grade levels as well. So we've been starting to administer those after each unit of study. That helps us determine what standard areas students are struggling in, and the teachers can adjust instruction based on their data. And then for math, we have the program Spring Math, which is utilized daily as a class-wide intervention for kindergarten through sixth grade. This uses a peer tutoring model. So the teachers have some instruction, but then the kids are really working together to build that math fluency, which is foundational for that complex math that they are struggling with. So we're hoping that with that in place that we can start to fill in some of these gaps. So that's kind of what we're doing at the class-wide level. And then of course, through our MTSS model, we have our students that are tier 3 are receiving that additional support of intervention. We use research-based interventions. We are running interventions for kindergarten through 8th grade. They run daily for both math and reading. We progress monitor them on a weekly basis. We check their data, make sure that we make changes to intervention based on if they're making progress or not. And we hold data meetings with the classroom teachers as well as the interventionists to make sure that if we do need to make a change of any sort, we are kind of on top of it versus letting it slip by until winter.
Oh, looks like you got your work cut out for you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The sort of the benchmarking, how, I know that there were a few different benchmarking, like there's just like, I know the exact path is new this year and they used something else last year. And when they were in school before, they were using something else. So is there any difference that needs to be accounted for because of that?
So all of the assessments that we're using this year is what we started. Unfortunately, we implemented it all last year. It was in the plans to implement last year and it just was bad timing.
Right.
So everything that was last year is still the same as this year.
Okay.
2 years ago, yes, everything was different. So that could be accounted for, but based on what last year and this year is, it's the same. So I wouldn't, and the measures are typically about the same. It's just a different program name.
Okay.
Honestly.
And there's no, it's just so hard to look at last year's data and compare it
Correct.
to anything. I mean, even comparing it to this year, I think is difficult because
For sure.
there were kids that were never here.
Correct.
Or new.
Right.
That's always a struggle for us because you got new kids, you're benchmarking for the first time. It's a revolving door in data and it affects our data based on the kids. So it is hard.
Because that would have been spring. When would that would have been May?
Yes.
So the kids, when did we start? April, right? So they were in school. Some kids were in school 5 days for a month.
Correct. Yes.
Maybe.
In last springs, I mean, if students that were fully remote, we tested them online.
Right.
That's another factor. So it's truly, it is what it is last year. So we are really trying to start fresh with our fall data.
We can do.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kim. Anybody else have any questions for Kim?
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, I guess, how
Oh,
close,
sorry.
sorry, we're done. How close do we I understand that it changes from year to year, like I said, but how close are we to the goal of 80, 15, 5 in a normal period, I guess, at the end of a normal year?
Depends on the grade level. Some grade levels are very close to that. Other grade levels are not typically close to that. So to be honest, some of the plans that we are putting in place with the class-wide interventions were things that we started discussing 2 years ago prior to COVID even happening. So we thought that would help kind of reach towards those goals. So we have at a divisional level, we were not at 80, 15, 5, which is why these discussions had started prior to. It's just now they've kind of complicated itself a little bit extra.
And gave us a sense of urgency because of the amount of kids that need intervention.
Thank you.
I have just one last question. Did you notice, as far as, you gave the good divisional, did you notice any specific grades within the divisions that are heavy hitters? I'm just thinking of, our kindergartners who were kindergartner during COVID, they're now our second graders. And just looking at learning gaps, have you noticed one particular within each cohort or division that's especially needing more attention than others?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have within each of the divisions, we typically have at least one of the grade levels that is doing really, really well. And then we have identified which grade levels need that extra support. And we started to put that more in place for specific grade levels. Yep.
Okay.
There is some concern, like 8th grade math is a concern, right? And we have a teacher that's going out on maternity leave. So now we need to find a teacher. And if there's a gap in instruction, so there's all of these things that play into us trying to stay on top of what we see as need and how to give them what they need.
and pathways, where you're
Right.
at as far as especially math and building skills, it's
Exactly.
comprehensive and you have to keep building and learning gaps are significant. So, okay.
Yeah.
Do we feel as though we have, I know the ESSER's money has been a tremendous, it's allowing us to bring intervention. Do we feel like we're on target with enough support to support the needs that we have right now? I know we always can have more people.
We're working on it. Is Jen here? She sent out a letter. I mean, maybe you know the exact answer for tutoring after school.
Okay.
And I know that we had, as part of ESSER's money and some of the support money, we had transportation as something that was provided.
Last
And
time.
I think out of the amount of kids that, do you know the exact number? I think 20 maybe said yes.
That would sound about right.
And I think there was 80 that got it. So, I mean, it's a commitment from them too, to find the time to be able to get in here, to give them the extra. And hiring is another huge part of it. Like, we have all of this support, but we have to find the right people to give it to. So I'm not going to say that's not a struggle, but we're working to get it in place. Yeah.
I do feel like this year we've done a really good job, and this is probably the best year with giving the kids the supports because we have the extra interventionists in place in both buildings as well.
And getting started 2 weeks into the school year. is
Correct.
Yeah.
That is-
Kindergarten has seen the most in that starting
Yep.
early, because kindergarten usually waits
Yeah.
to meet in groups. And Kim and I have been talking about that conversation, and they're soaring.
Yeah.
So that's been huge.
That's great.
Mhm.
because there are a group of kids that didn't get to go to preschool.
Right,
So-
right.
No, they are doing really well. So
Right.
positive news.
Start, yeah.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to jump right in. I had that slide that has our pillars, and I just wanted to bring to our attention again that this all plays into our strategic plan. So every board meeting, this focuses on the teaching and learning, and I'm trying to align so the board can see the strategic plan with what you're seeing. Okay. So moving on to guidance for masks. So this is part of the same slide that you saw in September. Okay, so PDE, Pennsylvania Department of Health, Chester County Health Department is recommending that we follow CDC guidance. CDC is not a governing body, cannot make the decision. What they're asking the local board level to make the decisions. So the Commonwealth, then there was Governor Wolf, who issued a mask mandate, and then it really fell out of everybody's hands because Governor Wolf mandated it. So then the Commonwealth Court recently, you saw the ruling, overturned the school masking order. So that was very confusing for parents because they're like, the court said we don't need to wear a mask. However, that is when Governor Wolf filed an appeal, which made this decision in a stay. So now we're all still in the same requirement of wearing a mask. However, on January 17th, Governor Wolf has announced that he is making the requirement back to the local control, which means back to the school board. I'm not looking for the school board, obviously, to make a decision because the decision's in a stay. You can't make that decision right now. But I think it's important, if January 17th is the target date, that we start having the conversations about what decisions you had on the table prior to us having that mandate. So what does that mean? That means these were the options that were on the table. So, oh, sorry, did I skip a slide? Sorry, framework for decisions. So health and safety of students and staff obviously is our priority. Social distancing has not changed. So this is the biggest one. If the Chester County Health Department doesn't change the guidance on quarantining and social distancing, that means if kids are close contact, if they're not 3 to 6 feet, they're going to have to go home. And part of the conversation that we had in September is kids have to be in school. We just had this conversation with Kim. It's important kids are in school. We see the learning deficit that happens when they're not in school. So keeping students face-to-face is our biggest goal. Operational concerns relating to quarantine requirements, obviously, we aren't going to make that 3 feet. So, that's some factor. COVID-19 incidents, we're still in the substantial range, and vaccination status. We're not collecting vaccination status for students currently right now. So that plays in. However, things have changed. Vaccinations are available for ages 5 through 11. So that changed since September, and we have that on the table. So when we left last, we had some of these options, and this is where we left. So we had the option to follow the CDC's recommendations and implement universal masking regardless of vaccination status at both campuses and adhere to the mask exemption requirements. Option 2 was to implement a masking policy based on incident rates and positivity rates within the county. So if we were in the low or moderate range, it would be optional. If we were in the substantial or high range, it would be required. Option 3 was that we implement a policy of mask optional regardless of vaccination status. So if we do something like that, we started talking about a test to stay program. So currently Radnor School District was doing a test to stay. So if they were a close contact, they would be tested by the nurse day 2, day 5 to make sure that they're not positive. However, the Chester County Health Department is not supporting that right now. So I want to make sure I say that to you because that's not something that they have gave us the blessing to be able to do. But I wanted to put it on the table because school districts are doing it. Implement a policy of mask optional vaccinated students and staff. This would need to be a vaccination documentation process like we're doing for the staff. So then, there's the conversation around kids knowing whether you're vaccinated or not, wearing a mask, all of that. And then we'd have to have a documentation process. And then masks required for non-vaccinated students and staff. So these are the options. Again, this is not to make a decision. It's really about a discussion. Is there any questions or information that you need as a board, whether that be a survey or something that you would like to see from the school, knowing that we have a month to kind of get there and you have that January 17th right now deadline?
I think I would request that we find a way that how we collected information and feedback from our school community specifically as we did before. I found that was helpful to know what our local school community members, meaning parents, guardians of students who are here, just an opportunity to give their feedback. I think that was helpful just for them to have a link to give their feedback, because I think that represents the community and not the greater community of every school district. I think it's very important for us to know what families from our school are saying.
Okay.
And can we get what our incident rates have been for next time?
Yep.
For the county or
For us?
they don't do it, they'll do it by school district?
No. I want to know.
Our school.
Our numbers.
I can get, Nurse Holly keeps track. I can give you our dashboard stuff so you can kind of see the trends. Yeah.
Thank you, Mel.
Anything else?
The other thing I was thinking of is just a clear definition of like who has to go. You said it earlier, like they have to go home. Like what does have to go home mean?
Okay.
Who has to go home? So that way we're aware of that, right? Like, and parents can know what that means for their children, right? Like we've talked about kids staying in school, and like most parents can agree with that. And so what does it mean if a kid were to get sick in a classroom, who has to go home? And so a clear understanding of that would be beneficial.
Okay. And know that who has to go home could change in this month based that we're all having conversations. Superintendents are having conversations around district decisions. And so a lot can change in the month. We all know that. Our incident rate can change drastically when we start having holidays and things like that. So you have time, you can email me if there's additional information. I just really wanted to start the conversation, ask for you to, communicate to me what you need so that you're ready when that decision has to be made.
Are we currently asking for voluntary vaccine information on students?
Some parents are voluntarily doing that. Like I know, some parents have done it and just forgot to turn in the card. So we haven't mandated some. We're just saying, hey, I'll turn it in. Obviously, if you're listening to this meeting, it's important if you can share with that. It just keeps the data fresh so that we have it, but there's no mandate to share it. That could be part of the discussion though, and asking them to share. They don't have to share, but that's something that we can do. I've had many parents ask if we're requiring vaccinations or mandating vaccinations. And at this point, I told them the board has never discussed any kind of mandate of vaccinations for students. And I didn't know any plan to do that as well. So that's how I left it. They definitely have communicated strong opinions about that. And so I wanted to make sure I stress that too.
Because the quarantine policy is going to be different depending upon vaccination status, and
Mhm.
just like it is other.
Exactly. And then that will be very discouraging for parents to see some kids be able to stay and some kids, but we don't make those rules up. Like that's part of the health department's guidance in quarantine.
And do we need to revisit that just to refresh ours, not now, but maybe have that?
Close context quarantine, what that means.
So based on, if we're a fully masked organization, fine, this is it. If we are a
Yep.
voluntary, this is the way it is.
Sure.
If you're vaccinated and if you're not, and then proving and all that stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be valuable for next time.
Okay. Sounds good.
Anything else anyone wants to ask?
All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is charter renewal. So we have that coming up. Avon School District, we requested our documents. We have 30 days to do so. The binder was very large. I'm not sure if you were in the business office and saw it, but it was like 1,000 documents. Poor Christina took all 14 to the district and filled her car and carried them in.
So much more muscle.
That's right. So it was delivered. Chris Marchese got back to us and said, received your documents. Thank you. Would like to schedule the meeting. So he scheduled the meeting for December 16th. So it's on the book so that we can have the hearing and be done with the charter renewal process. Part of the conversation in the beginning was that we asked Avon Grove School District or requested a target number of 2,200. In that conversation, Avon Grove School District then came back and requested an enrollment cap just for Avon Grove students. I asked what that enrollment cap would look like. And today he gave me the number of 950. So there's several reasons that Avon Grove is asking us for this cap. One of the reason being a budgetary planning status and future planning status. So we're asking for that 2,200 number because we're building that building. We want to make sure we can get those extra 100 kids. We want to continue that path. They also would like the same courtesy, knowing that this is the max number that would go to Avon Grove Charter School so that they can also budget and future plan in their new building. Another reason is just to make sure Dr. Marchese had communicated that this would be for the 5 years and that he would be open to negotiating future renewals based on need of both of us schools. And then just the reoccurring working relationship that we're building with them. This is their first request of us, and making sure that we are talking about what that request is and continuing that good, healthy working relationship. Some of the concerns that I'm hearing among our board or conversations with administration has been, our school has always been, we want to be the small neighborhood school. So if you would have said to the board 20 years ago, we're going to have a school of 2,200 kids, they would say, I don't think so, right? And so things change. COVID happened, right? Things change and we can't predict the future. So when you can't predict the future, there's this need of understanding when you agree to something like this, what does that mean for future programming? Other things are bond covenants. So we have to maintain a bond covenants for enrollment. We have the lottery system. So some of the conversation has been, if we get close to that number that we decide, how do you then decide, okay, we have this amount of kids open, but we can't give them to the Avon Grove kids. And then what does that look like in school choice for Avon Grove community? District precedents, meaning if we do it for Avon Grove, what's to deter other districts to come and say, can they have a cap? Now, I did talk to Dr. Marchese, and that board is not looking for other districts. That was not part of the conversation. It was just Avon Grove. And again, we also want to have the continued working relationship with the district. There is some legislative concern, just being that cap, any kind of enrollment cap has been on the table. Philadelphia does have some enrollment cap, so I can't say some charter schools have not done that, but it's been brought up in legislative capacity. So at this point, again, I'm not necessarily looking for a decision. We have until December 16th. I know that between the board and the solicitor, we talked about some special meetings so that we can talk further about what that number looked like. I just wanted to kind of make sure you know that there was a number that was given today. these are some of the concerns from administration, board, solicitor for both Avon Grove School District and Avon Grove Charter School, and wanting to make sure that I answer any of the questions, because this is kind of a decision that's going to need to be made sooner than later. We won't even make it to the board meeting. We're going to have a special meeting regarding this. So is there any questions or things that you need from me before that?
Okay.
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
As far as, so that's roughly 43% of our total.
Oh, actually, I forgot. I have this slide.
Okay.
You can see it.
Projected. I was going to ask you exactly what I was going to ask.
Okay, I knew you were going to ask. So this is Avon Grove currently, right now, we're at that 35.12%. And, it's a healthy, diverse population from all the different districts that are surrounding us. If you look at the top, that's the Avon Grove enrollment number from the last 5 years. So 5, yes. So 749, 772, 709, that big dip, that 653, 709 started when full day kindergarten happened at Avon Grove, and then 654. So but this is also important to acknowledge. Like, I had a parent today ask me about enrollment, really wants to come to our school, having trouble in their district. And I asked what grade. They said 4th grade. I looked at the waiting list. There was 41 kids on the waiting list for 4th grade. What I said is, you can't win the lottery unless you play the lottery. So you would at least fill out your application. But I did notice there were several Avon Grove kids on that waiting list. So even though you see that decrease, that doesn't mean there's not Avon Grove kids waiting on that waiting list to come into the school. So I think it's important for you to hear all of those things as we decide how we want to go forward and addressing the issue. So, or not issue, request.
And just to make it clear, this is just a request. It is not normal, and we do not have to accept it. It is not part of the charter renewal. It is just a gentleman's agreement to ask to, for lack of a better term,
Sure.
that we play nice.
Right. I will say to you, the conversation is we've requested of them that 2,200 number, and in mutual asking, they're asking for a number. So I am, open to all discussion. The working relationship is very important to us as a school. But understand that we've weighed the other things that are very important to us as a school and the community and the charter school movement. And so I think we have to really think, or you have to think, it's really a board decision about, how you want to move forward in communicating back.
So
Okay.
do we know how many Avon Grove students do not win the lottery and choose not to stay on the waiting list? Because right now, 950 is obviously below our current Avon Grove enrollment plus our waiting list from Avon Grove.
It's like a 300, yeah. Mhm.
So are there students?
And we don't have housing for that either, nor do we necessarily want. We remember, go back to the small community feel. That's what we want.
So, it's not a terrible cap. There is space to grow into it if needed. But are there other students that we're not capturing in this waiting list that did not get in from the lottery from Avon Grove?
I don't know that number. Brian, do you know that number off the top of your head?
Well, that would be good.
I know. I don't know. I can find that number out in the discussion.
Once a student goes through the lottery process, usually the only time their status in the lottery changes is if we offer a spot to them. Then it'll be October, and they might say, no, I don't want it, I'm already in school, and they remove themselves from the wait list. So the wait list numbers are somewhat skewed because you don't know what the intention of those waitlisted people would be at the time of an offer anyway.
Sure. But are there people who were not capturing from Avon Grove in that wait list number? How much bigger is it than 186? And again, is it generally larger, much larger? Is it double?
You want the Avon Grove number in.
That doesn't get in.
Yeah.
Doesn't get in.
We can get that. Yeah, we'll get that. And I'll make that as part of the special board meeting. And again, just like the masking, if there's something that you want to see before that meeting happens, before the charter renewal meeting, I just want to make sure I give you all the information, and I can even go back to Dr. Marchese and ask of him questions you might have. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about the timing of when we have to get back to them and make sure that that's all before I go on that December 16th meeting.
So maybe we could schedule it that week right after Thanksgiving at first, if that works for everyone, just a quick.
Yeah, we definitely need another discussion.
You know, just off the cuff, I would be more amenable to a percentage versus a hard fast number. Because
Yeah, but something simple as like the wording you use to describe this as well could solve for this without having to lock us into anything specific.
Yeah, it would protect them and protect us.
Sure, right, like, rather than a hard and fast number, it's a target number, which, as we know, target numbers can vary either higher or lower than that, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to table,
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, so I'm asking the board to table item 4D and then reconvene after the executive session to vote.
yeah, we'll have an executive session. All right. Personal legal matters. We have three resolutions on the table that were discussed previously at a previous executive session. We would need a motion referring to number 5, letter A. If you open it in board docs, if you have questions, we need to motion to ratify the approval of this resolution. This was what was discussed at our executive session. If there's any questions, let me know, but if not, I need a motion to ratify a resolution.
I'll motion to ratify the resolution 2022-02.
Thank you. Any second?
I'll second Stacy Barno.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Again, I need a motion to approve the resolution number 2022-03.
So moved.
Thank you, Colleen. Do I have a second?
Brian Lyman, I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. And the final resolution, I need a motion to approve 2022-04.
I'll make the motion, Stacy Barno, to approve resolution 2022-04.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second Michelle McCray.
You all, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Daisy, you got the limelight.
All right,
Treasurer's report.
12 items on the report.
Oh, no.
I will attempt to.
Oh, no.
I hate to be the person standing between us and the soccer game. All right. The treasurer's report, the AGCS financial statement approval. There are no financials to report. Number 2, the 2021 October funds activity and vendor billing reports. The committee reviewed the 2021 October funds activity report, the vendor billing report, and the October check register. Administration is requesting the board approve the October funds activity report, the vendor billing report, and the October check register as presented under the consent agenda. Number 3, the cash position as of November 12th, 2021. The school's cash position is reported as very good. Our sending school district's monthly payments are current. Number 4, the PDE 2057 annual financial report. The PDE 2057 annual financial report, electronic filing due October 31st, 2021. This annual filing has been reviewed and submitted to the PDE as required. Administration is requesting the board approve the annual financial report under the consent agenda as presented. The AGCS 2020-2021 fiscal year audit. AGCS engaged Barbicane Thornton and Company, LLC, to perform the 2020-2021 fiscal year audit. The audit field work was completed in late September with no financial findings reported. All requirements, including the debt service ratio, the days cash on hand calculation, bond covenants have been met. A draft of the audit has been made available to all board members for their review and questions prior to their consideration to approve at the December 2021 board meeting. Number 6, diversified fall protection proposal. The diversified fall protection proposal ordered to address the safe access to the State Road campus roof was reviewed by both the Facilities and Finance Committee. Based on these reviews and recommendations, administration is requesting the board approve the proposal as presented under the consent agenda. Number 7, the ESSERS. Number 3, ARP, IDEA, CCEIS, occupational therapist position. AGCS has been provided an additional ESSERS, ARP, IDEA, CCEIS, 611 funding allotment in the amount of $68,990. These funds have a restricted use and may only be used to fund special education. Administration has determined there is a strong need for a full-time occupational therapist. A cost analysis was prepared and reviewed by the Finance Committee. Based on the review and the cost of this position, administration is requesting this position be approved as presented under the consent agenda. Number 8, the bond additional indebtedness legal memo. As the board and administration begin to evaluate solutions for the replacement of the State Road educational modulars, the business office was asked to begin preliminary discussions with our bond counsel to better understand financing options available to AGCS. The school's bond counsel, Bob Cohen, has reviewed our loan and trust agreement and provided a list of options available to the school should certain compliance items be met. A copy of this memo has been made available to all board members. Number 9, the AGCS Business Office Sage Intact Accounting Database System Transition Update. The business office continues to move through the final transition phase for Sage Intact Accounting System. The team will be meeting with Sage Intact to discuss the continued system errors as needed to resolve the last few issues. The first quarter financials were completed late this afternoon. Mandated reporting compliance items were filed. Number 10, the annual 2021 board public disclosure, updated Appendix A. The annual public disclosure document, AGCS Appendix A, is required by our bond trustee, was discussed. This report is due on November 30th, 2021. Once the audit and certificates are received, the annual Appendix A report can be finalized. The report will be submitted to all board members prior to our annual filing date scheduled for November 29th, 2021. Miscellaneous business office items. The interim business manager, Joseph Courtney, started November 15th, 2021. We are glad to have him. And number 12, last but not least, I need a motion to approve the business office consent agenda as presented.
I'll motion Dwayne Degler.
Do I have a second?
Brian Ladman, I'll second.
Okay. Any questions? None? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Very nice. All right. Ah, Tasha. Come on, Tasha.
Tasha, they want to talk to you, but now.
She's only got 6 things.
I'll get this done in like 10 seconds. All right, so the personnel consent agenda is as follows. We do not have any resignations, nor retirements or releases. We have 1 leave. Nicole Burns will be returning from FMLA effective November 22nd. We do not have any professional staff. We do have 1 new hire under support staff, who is Jennifer Gutman, instructional aide, effective Monday, the 8th. We do not hire any contracted vendors nor seasonal staff. Administration is recommending the approval of the staffing changes provided within the personnel consent agenda, specifically items listed on 8A through 8I.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have a motion on the board to approve the staffing changes provided within the personnel consent agenda, 8A through 8I?
I'll motion Stacy Barno for the personnel consent agenda, 8A through 8I.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? So moved. Thank you, Tasha.
Thank you.
Moving right along. Donna, your turn. Policies.
Thank you. It's very clear. We are just looking to approve policies tonight. We had several policies presented to the board last month for their 30-day review. So for approval tonight, I'll say all the policies with their numbers and request a motion to approve. Policy number 1007.1, programs, lesson planning. Policy 1008, programs, textbook and resource materials. Policy 1010, programs, instructional supplies. Policy 1021, programs, field trips. Policy 1022, programs, extracurricular activities. And lastly, for approval, policy 1027, programs, assessment systems. We did receive a few questions that went to legal and to Brian. Responses were provided to the board as a whole. At this point, administration is requesting a motion to approve policies as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve policies 1007.1, 1008, 1010, 1021, 1022, and 1027?
Paige Atkins, I motion to approve the policies as stated.
Do I have a second?
I'll second Stacy Barno.
Any discussion?
I just want to reiterate what Donna shared with the board and the public. There were questions regarding this, and a lot of the questions regarding procedurals, not necessarily the policy. So there were things are going to be shared as far as what the process and procedures are. So I think it's important that the public knows that they're thoroughly reviewed and that those questions were thoroughly answered by the administration. So thank you.
All right, if nothing else, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So moved.
Okay, with the approval of those new updated policies, we have 3 older AGCS policies that need to be rescinded. The first one is guidelines for extracurricular programs. The second one is field trip policy and guidelines. And the third one is lesson plans. Administration is looking for a motion to rescind the 3 policies as presented.
Do I have a motion to rescind the 3 policies, lesson plans, field trips, and extracurricular programs?
I'll motion to rescind the 3 policies.
Do I have a second?
Yep, I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Thank you, Donna. At this time, the board is going to go into a brief recess for an executive session, and we will be back shortly. session. Thank you very much. Donna?
On behalf of administration, is requesting the board make a motion to pass our payroll recommendation scenario C.
Great, thank you, Donna. So we're looking for motion to approve the payroll recommendation C. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve payroll recommendation C, DG Akintor.
Do I have a second?
Brian Ladman, I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. All right, thank you. Anything final from the school principal directors?
It's Donna's birthday today. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Donna.
Big birthday.
Thank you.
That's a big word.
29 again. Good for you.
You're so funny.
Other committee reports or questions, options? No. All right, then we will, I will look for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I will motion to adjourn, DG Akintor.
Do I have a second?
I'll second Stacy Barno.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We'll see you in December.